Seamus Hughes is Deputy Director of the Program on Extremism at George Washington University Center for Cyber and Homeland Security and a former senior counterterrorism advisor for the U.S. Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and he joins us now. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so according to the New York Times, Rahami's father warned the FBI that his son was a terrorist in 2014. Our National Homeland Security correspondent, Jeff Pegues, says that he may have recanted that. If it turns out that he did notify the FBI, though, what do you make of that?
So it looks like in 2014 it was an assessment, which is the lowest form of investigation the FBI can do. They get hundreds of those a day or a week. So the question becomes, is it a call? Is it a credible thing? But see, we've seen this play out time and time again, whether look at the Orlando shooting or San Bernardino or Boston. The FBI has done initial assessments. It speaks to how hard it is to figure out when someone's going from radical thought to violent action. It's a very difficult balancing act the FBI has to do.
And the FBI say, along with the NYPD, that they're not looking for any other suspects, but sources also say he's not cooperating. So in your estimation, does it appear that he may have acted alone?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends, old colleagues in New York and New Jersey who've been spending a lot of sleepless nights running down leads. So right now they're going through all of the cell phone records, the social media, friends and family to figure out whether he acted alone. Initial reactions look like he does. The real question is going to come down to what's the bomb look like, right? Is it something that he could make by himself, or is it something he needed training to do? And that'll shake out in the next couple weeks.
So we don't know his motive, but we do know that he traveled to Pakistan, he traveled to Afghanistan, and some of his writings reveal a possible interest in radical ideologies like those of Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram. If it turns out that he's linked to a jihadi group, should we be worried, or does this show that they don't have the capabilities to carry out a large-scale attack like they did on 9/11? In other words, the idea that perhaps if it turns out that he is linked to Al-Qaeda, for example, 15, 16 years ago, they launched an attack, 9/11. Today, they've got this guy who turns out to be sleeping in the doorway of a bar, putting a couple of homemade bombs on the streets of New York.
Right. Although we should note that if those bombs went off and they're placed in the right place, we'd have a different conversation right now.
Absolutely.
But, we have seen Al-Qaeda be interested in more sophisticated attacks. But now they're dealing with, Al-Qaeda and ISIS are dealing with homegrown terrorists, which don't have the same level of sophistication. They're able to kill, whether you see Orlando or just recently over the weekend, the individual in St. Cloud, Minnesota, who stabbed 9 people. So you're seeing this low level of attacks. Unfortunately, we may see this as the new normal. There's a level of randomness behind it that is concerning, but I think the ugly reality is we're going to have to deal with this kind of level of threat.
Give us an insight into this cleric, Anwar al-Awlaki, because his name is popping up a lot more now in some of the rantings of would-be jihadis, people online, even more so in some cases than Osama bin Laden. Why is that?
Yeah, Awlaki was essentially a trailblazer. He had the ability, an American who had the ability to translate very difficult religious texts and perceived religious obligations, and essentially act as a spiritual sanctioner for individuals. And he's been linked to a number of different plots, not only just a propagandist, but also operational. I just spent a year and a half in the Senate doing an investigation of the Fort Hood attacks, and Major Nadal Hassan, the perpetrator there, had communicated with Anwar al-Awlaki. He's a guy, despite his death, still has resonance. We still see him playing out online. We still see would-be jihadists online talking about Sheikh al-Awlaki.
All right, let me ask you a political question here. Donald Trump is supporting profiling. Will that help keep us safer, or will it further play into the claims by radical groups?
So we look at data and facts of the program on extremism, and there's not a typical profile of an ISIS recruit or Al-Qaeda recruit or jihadist recruit. They're old, they're young, they're rich, they're poor, black and white. So unfortunately, profiling doesn't work. One, being from a data standpoint, and two, just from a moral standpoint. So unfortunately, there's not a checklist of a would-be terrorist, right? They don't go through a linear process, and there's not a typical profile of them.
All right, Seamus Hughes, as always, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.